Help 1 and 2 just got some massive updates on its gameplay coming super soon. The FNAF movie got its runtime revealed along with an official PG-13 rating. FNAF Plus just got officially canceled by the developer. This and so much more in a massive episode of Five Nights at Freddy's news, like if you end up enjoying. So starting things off simple with the FNAF movie, as you guys may remember, a little while back, the FNAF movie was reported to have a runtime of just over 2 hours as a placeholder in one of its listings, which I originally thought was pretty long considering the movie's extremely simple concept of just watching over a restaurant. However, clearly I was being too harsh, as popular leaker Cryptic HD Quality reported that the Five Nights at Freddy's runtime has been updated to approximately 3 hours. A few months ago on my all, I did say the movie had a pretty long runtime, but this isn't final, meaning that the movie is going to be extremely long, like way longer than I think any of us could have ever expected. And to be honest, seeing how they're going to manage to expand a plot so simple, especially with a lot of the cast being non-canon or completely original, into a full and proper 3-hour film that's loved by FNAF lore fans will be very interesting. However, people have also pointed out that this could be a potential problem for the movie as well, since especially with more casual fans, 3 hours of a movie is a really large attention and time commitment. Best case scenario though is that the leaker reported this as non-final and probably subject to change, meaning at least in my opinion there will surely be a lot more cuts in the movie to ensure it's a much more reasonable length for at least most audiences. But I'd love to see what they potentially end up cutting from the 3-hour runtime. Speaking of cutting things though, they will also be cutting a lot of violence from the movie because it's now official that the movie is rated PG-13 or 13+. It's a theory and rumor I've mentioned to you guys probably countless times at this point, but now it's been officially reported. It's not going to be rated R like what some people were expecting. But for those concerned, to be honest, there really isn't much to worry about in terms of the film's quality, as a lot, if not even most horror films still are rated PG-13 without taking away from the horror. So I'm extremely confident everything is gonna be fine. Moving on from the movie though, recently it was actually just Five Nights at Freddy's 9th anniversary, marking 9 years since the very first FNAF was released, which is absolutely crazy to say out loud. And in tradition, there was a ton of celebrating the big occasion from the game's developers. However, in terms of news, there honestly wasn't very much. Some of the fanverse developers announced some U2's plushes, but other than that, it was really slow for something as big as an anniversary. No trailers for anything outside of one big Help 1 and 2 update, which we'll talk about later in the video. Speaking of anniversaries though, what makes this incredibly interesting is that recently the company Scholastic had a trade parade showcase, which is just a place for them to show off and market new books, specifically for FNAF things like the FNAF cookbook coming out next month, which will be super cool. But as YouTuber and reporter Johnny Blocks would point out, in the FNAF section of the showcase, Scholastic, under their sales points for FNAF, would randomly say that August 2024 is the 10th anniversary of Five Nights at Freddy's and will be supported through marketing initiatives from licensing agent Stryker and game publisher Steelwool, which is an extremely interesting and hyper-specific thing for them to just randomly say in a showcase that dropped even before FNAF's 9th anniversary, over a year in advance, in fact. So clearly it seems like the devs are trying to hint at least something coming in the near future relating to FNAF's marketing initiatives, and more specifically they mentioned the company Steelwool, which is great to see that they're still going to have involvement in the franchise, even though Help 1 and 2 as of right now is their only upcoming FNAF related title. But what people have pointed out as the most specific detail in this little blob of text is the fact that they mentioned the company Stryker, which is the brand responsible for licensing out the FNAF name to other companies. I would assume like U2's for merch, or perhaps the Game Theory brand who they collab with all the time. So people have been speculating that this could be a hint of maybe a collab with other game companies or creators, some even theorizing maybe something like a Dead by Daylight inclusion, or even more mainstream of Fortnite, as ridiculous as it sounds. I'm not sure, but whatever it ends up being, it would be insane to see FNAF link up with other IPs, especially ones in the similar horror scene that could make it way more interesting. But this is of course just me guessing, and this could just be them selling their game and nothing really more. Going a little bit darker here now, unfortunately the FNAF Fanverse initiative had a really big hit, as by far the most anticipated game coming from the Fanverse out of all of them, being Five Nights at Freddy's Plus, has actually been completely canceled. More specifically, if you didn't know, the game's creator Fiznom recently got in a ton of Twitter drama. I actually made a full video on it here you should watch after this one. But basically, after all of the drama, the game would be completely removed from the Steam platform it used to be on, and in a video made by Phil, he would address the whole situation, announcing his contract termination from the Fanverse program, along with a break from the internet entirely. entirely. And this unfortunately means that, at least as far as I think, this is going to be it for FNAF Plus forever. With Phil leaving the fanverse, it means he can't ever release the game and can't even really talk about it or what happened to it either. So basically, FNAF Plus has just become lost media to time, which is really disappointing because it was going to allow us to relive FNAF in an unimaginably exciting way. I originally was hoping for the game to get picked up by somebody else, or better yet, be released by the game's official publisher's Click team. However, that probably wouldn't be fair to Phil, and I think they can all agree on that, which is why it's probably just best for now that the game stays as something that never saw the light of day, and possibly as an example of the massive negative side effects of unnecessary drama in the grand scheme of things. However, moving off that detour, I wanted to talk about the very next FNAF game, Help 1 and 2, which appears to finally be getting updates in anticipation of its release in late 2023. As something I didn't mention was that on the anniversary of Five Nights at Freddy's, Steelwool Studios themselves would make a post on Twitter celebrating, saying, "Happy FNAF Day, join us at PAX West for a special experience. Steelwool Studios is bringing something familiar," with the poster below being a photo of Freddy used in the original Help Wanted a couple years back, meaning the something familiar in this tweet is referencing Help Wanted, and this is them basically announcing at PAX there's going to be an official showcase of Help Wanted 2. And not only that, this actually means that it will be the first time where gameplay will be shown of the actual title, gameplay that people will actually be able to try and test a bit early before its final release, hopefully giving us an idea on the actual quality of Help Wanted 2. And this event in question, I believe, is actually happening early September, so literally in less than a month, which, while somewhat minor, tells us a few things about Help Wanted 2. First off, that the game is most likely already in a playable state and is planned or is already completed with a release date to be announced in the future, since at its core the Help Wanted series is meant to be a more casual take on FNAF rather than being some super deep high budget project like what we saw with Security Breach and Security Breach Ruin, especially since if they are showcasing the game at PAX for people to give it a try, it has to mean the game itself is able to be played, albeit probably in some sort of demo or more primitive state than what we might have expected. What this also means is that the game should be coming here extremely soon, especially if the game is already being showcased at events. I'm talking like a couple months max. In terms of release date predictions, I would honestly guess either as early as October for Halloween, or at the absolute latest, potentially earlier in the holiday season. But it definitely seems like that is getting extremely close to being done only like 2 or 3 weeks after Ruin DLC just dropped. And while it's still going to be a few months before we actually get our hands on the title ourselves, literally in just a couple weeks, there's probably going to be gameplay and a reception of how good the game is, along with, of course, a trailer too. Because, by the way, as of right now, we still don't have a trailer outside of the mini tease that doesn't show us any gameplay, so we can also expect that. But to see all that stuff when it comes out and even more updates, make sure you're subscribed here, of course, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.